Well, now, if that wasn't the funniest thing, I've been talking and I forgot to turn the record on because, yeah, that's me. I'm real bad with videos like that. I've missed all sorts of fantastic things because I forgot to turn the record button on. So, oh, dude, I did not want to be behind him. We're going to go around. So, this is Fun Friday Facts with Lisa Day. As I mentioned in my non-recorded space a few moments ago, dude, you nearly ran over me a while ago. My daughter Grace is a teacher, and she is now out on summer break. Typically, we talk on the phone every morning on my way into work, and she said she was not going to be getting up in the mornings to talk to me on my way to work this summer. So it may be you and me the whole time. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have that much to contribute in this world, but today I'll give you some fun facts about me. I mean, why not? That way gives you some ammunition to make fun of me or whatever you need to do. But one fun but not so fun fact is I did nearly get sideswiped a while ago by a pickup truck with his flatbed trailer. He wasn't paying attention and he was trying to get into my lane, and we were in traffic, so he started moving over. Fortunately, the shoulder on the side of the road was really big, so I was able to move into the shoulder, and the people behind me were paying attention, so we were all okay. But man, what a crazy thing. That would have been a rough start to my morning. So, fun facts with Lisa. Let's see. First fact is I have one sister with the same first name as me and one sister with the same married last name as me. So I have one sister named Lisa Carroll, and I have one sister whose last name is Scott. My last name is Scott. Her last name is Scott. We both married men whose last names were Scott. Now, how bizarre is that? So that's always my favorite piece of trivia to tell people, is I have one sister with the same first name, one with the same last name, and people just look at me like this is my brother Daryl, my other brother Daryl kind of thing. But, yes, I'll just leave you to wonder on all that, but absolutely great sisters. So that's my favorite trivia. Another fun fact with Lisa. Let's see. I wanted to be a pilot when I was a teenager. My bedroom was covered. The walls were completely covered in F-16 posters. And on my bedroom door, I think I had an F-15. I think. It was a full door size poster. Remember when they used to have those? Anyway, I wanted to be a pilot, and preferably a fighter pilot would have been fantastic. I have very poor eyesight, and I'm short. Well, and I'm stubby now. I wasn't stubby back then, but I was short and I had bad eyesight. And back in the day, a long day ago, they didn't let women just easily be fighter pilots or any of that, and they were very strict on like your height and your vision and things like that, and so I would not have qualified to be a fighter pilot. I did take, I guess it was the ASVAB, maybe, I'm not positive, I think that's what they call that test, and I did really, really good on one section of it. On that, there's a section where they gave you numbers, and then I mean, this is 100 years ago, y'all, but from what I remember, I think they gave you numbers, and then they would flip the numbers, and you had to pick the right numbers. I don't remember. It was something with numbers, but not calculations. It was something with visual representation with numbers. So I scored like 98 or 99% on that, and the Air Force came a-calling. And my mom answered the phone one day, and it was the Air Force, and she said, "Please do not call here again because my daughter will sign up to go with you." And we don't really want her to go. That was back in the Gulf War. She was like, "We really don't wanted to go into the military right now, and so they didn't call back. I thought it was kind of funny that Mom did that, but I did want to be a pilot and loved aerospace, anything. I mean, in middle school, I was in the Young Astronauts Club. In high school, I was all about fighter planes, fighter jets, what do you want to call them, and airplanes and things like that. And then I went to college to be a teacher, a music teacher. And so the piloting kind of got put on the back burner, and my interest kind of changed. I mean, I still loved aerospace, don't get me wrong, but that wasn't really my focus kind of thing. Well, oh, how cool is that? There is a car in front of me, and the license plate says Miss Lisa. Looky there. So now, full circle, I work at Bell Helicopter. So I get to be around things that fly all the time. And I love it. I still love things that go in the air. There's just something amazing, mystifying, and exciting about things that fly. So, yeah, that's a fun fact. Let's see. Another fun fact is, so if you know me, you know that I am a musician. I play the piano, and I don't so much anymore, but I was a singer. I deal with chronic cough. I can't talk clearly. So I don't sing as much as I did. And I do miss it. Occasionally, it's getting somewhat better, and occasionally I can sing along in the car, and sometimes at church I might can get one song out, but it's not often. Anyway, so I'm a musician. Now, where was I going with this? I don't know. I did teach music for 6 years in an elementary school, 2 elementary schools, and then I went into the general ed classroom because I decided I wanted to teach in the classroom. And it's really kind of funny because I remember telling my boss at the time, I really thought I wanted to teach 5th grade, because teaching music, I loved teaching 5th grade. They were just fun. And they were in our elementary school, so they were just, it was a good bunch of kids. And so I thought, I want to teach 5th grade. And she's like, nah, I don't know if you ought to teach 5th grade just yet, because I had never taught in the general ed classroom before. I said, well, I do not want to be responsible for teaching somebody how to read. I don't know enough about all that, and I just don't want to be responsible for that. So I went and taught 2nd grade. Now, that campus, our 2nd graders came in knowing how to read, and it was awesome. 2nd grade, it's a great grade to teach, let me just tell you. But then when we moved up to North Texas, I taught 2nd grade, but then we were revamping, and we knew that at least 2 2nd grade teachers were going to have to move to 3rd grade. I think that's right. I think there were 2 of us that had to move. And so that year, I had the absolute best class ever. I mean, you talk about ideal class, I had it. And I thought, okay, we can do one of 2 things here. I can wait for them to assign me to 3rd grade because I just had a feeling it was coming, or I can volunteer to go and keep my kids. So I did. So I moved up to 3rd grade with my kids. Best decision ever in teaching, because looping with a fine group of people was just pretty amazing. Anyway, all of that's to say, I taught dyslexia and gifted and talented, and I was a 504 coordinator, and I worked with special ed things, and then I was, wait for it, a reading specialist and instructional coach position. starting out saying I don't want to have to teach somebody how to read, and here I was now. I became a reading specialist. Absolutely loved that position. So that's a fun fact. Let's see, another fun fact. Oh, I don't know that Shane will see this, but Shane and I only dated, well, on the calendar it was 4 weeks. In real life it was about 3 weeks before we got engaged. Yeah, when you know, you know. That's a whole story for another day, though, because it was crazy. But nope, we got engaged very quickly. We were in love, and we knew we were right for each other. Another fun fact: I love sloths. I think they're cute and soft and cuddly, and I'd love to hold one. I don't know, there's something about them. So, yep, I love sloths. Another fun fact is, let me think on this for just a second. I may be out of them. I mean, there's not much excitement in my world, to be quite honest. I wrote curriculum for Lifeway. That was really, really a cool opportunity. I loved that. I've met Alice Cooper. When I was writing curriculum for Lifeway, I flew to Nashville. And on my way, this is a great story. You're going to love this one. On my way home, I'm at the airport at Nashville. And, Nashville is a gateway for lots of famous musicians. And so I saw this person come up. Now, you have to know that I did not grow up listening to metal or rock or any of that. So, pardon me, I'm going to have to move that because I need some air conditioning. The sun is in my face. So, I saw this person, and I did not know who this person was, but I knew they were famous because everybody was like, ooh, can I get a picture with you? I need a picture with you. And I'm thinking, well, by golly, I better get a picture with this person too. I don't know who he is. He looks like a famous rock star, but I don't know who he is. But I probably ought to get a picture, and then I'll figure out who he is later. So he came over to where my flight was, my gate, my area, whatever you call it. And I said, may I get a picture with you? And he's like, now this was back in the days of flip phones. And I think I had one that wasn't a flip phone maybe, but it didn't take good pictures. And it didn't have internet and all of those things on it. But I said, may I take a picture with you? And he said, sure. So somebody takes our picture, and he said, man, my wife's going to be jealous when she sees all these pictures with pretty girls that I've taken. And I was like, oh, well, that was very sweet. And he was just a very kind person. I get on the plane, and I think that was that may not have been the same time. I'll come back to that one in a minute. So I get on the plane. I don't know who this guy is, but I still, I do recognize he's famous. So I send a text message to one of my friends and to my brother-in-law, Shane's brother, because I thought, well, they can tell me who this is. So I sent them the picture and did that. Well, that was back in the day. I don't think you got text messages as quickly as you get them now, because it took a bit. And I never heard back from my brother-in-law, which was weird. But I heard back from my friend, and my friend was like, oh, that's Alice Cooper. And I was like, oh, school's out for summer kind of thing. I didn't know who Alice Cooper was, sort of. It turns out Alice Cooper is a Christian, and he works with youth groups and things. So that was very cool. But here's where the story gets really hilarious. So my brother-in-law never called me back, or texted me back or anything, which I thought was kind of unusual, because usually, if I needed something, he would be right there to do whatever. But whatever, Steve, you didn't call me back. And couple of days later, the kids and I are coming home from school. And I can remember exactly where I was. I was just pulling out of Springtown Elementary School. And I get this phone call. And it's this lady. And I said, hello. And she said, why you be texting my Mondale? I'm like, what? Why you be texting my Mondale? I said, ma'am, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you do. You be texting my Mondale. And I'm like, well, then it dawns on me, oh, I guess I'd asked Shane, and Shane told me or whatever. My brother-in-law had gotten a new phone number, which is why he did not text or call me back. And Mondale must have had my brother-in-law's old phone number. I said, oh, ma'am, I wasn't texting Mondale. I was texting my brother-in-law, but that's not his phone number anymore. So I guess Mondale has that phone number or whatever. And she's like, uh-huh. And I said, ma'am, for real, I don't even know Mondale. I'm sorry. And she's like, yeah, well, I don't believe you. I said, ma'am, listen, I'm a Christian. I'm a pastor's wife, a teacher, and I'm not interested in texting pictures or anything to anybody. And she said, well, even a preacher's wife's got to have fun, a little fun sometimes. I was like, what? Oh my gosh. I said, well, ma'am, that is not who I am. That is not what I'm about. And I am sorry. I thought I was texting my brother-in-law. In the same time, I'm trying not to bust out laughing because this thing is just bizarre and hilarious. And she said, well, you better not be sending any more pictures to my Mondale or texting him. I'm like, ma'am, I am so sorry. It will not happen. I'm so sorry. And she's mad and she hangs up. Okay, y'all, that's the funniest thing. Why you be sending my pictures to my Mondale? I'm like, okay, anyway, that's a fun fact. That's a kind of a funny fact. Anyway, but I did get to meet Alice Cooper. Another time it was at the Nashville airport. When I got on the plane, I, of course, I'm not in business class or first class or anything, but I am, where I'm sitting, I can see first business class, whatever you call it now. And there was a man that came in. He looked very, very old, and he looked like Muhammad Ali. And I thought, that's interesting, but I didn't know if it was or not. And he had somebody with him, and he sat down, and somebody walked down the aisle, and they stopped, and they shook his hand. And so I think Muhammad Ali was on that flight, which I thought was kind of cool also. But hang on, I got to get across like 5 lanes. And here we go. Perfect. Thanks for hanging with me. That was easy. Anyway, so those are a few of my fun facts. I don't know that I have a whole lot more, but let me end by saying this. The best fact of all is that when I was a very young child, I made the decision to follow Jesus. And best decision in my entire life. I remember the day. When I was young, y'all. I was 4.5. Now you have to know, I always tease people and say I was pretty much born in a pew because I was in church from birth on. But I also was very mature for my age. I was born an old soul. And so I remember it was a Wednesday night. My dad was the associate pastor / youth minister. And my mom and I were in the car waiting for him. And I remember asking my mom, I said, why do people go down to the front and pray? And she said, well, because, or why did the people go down to the front? I guess is probably what I asked. And she said, they're praying. They're praying for people, you know, and praying for themselves and all of that. I was like, oh. And so I started asking more questions. And when my dad came out, I was asking him about because Mom and I had started talking about becoming a Christian, and I asked my dad what that meant and all of that. So, for whatever reason, we went back into the church. We went into a green Sunday school room with hard wooden pews, and he started telling me about what Jesus had done for me, that Jesus died on the cross for my sins. And he asked me if I had ever sinned, and we talked about what sin was, and yeah, clearly even at 4.5, I'd sinned. I mean, I hadn't killed anybody or anything, but boy, I was a little sassy. I know that's so hard to believe, but anyway, I recognized that yes, I did have sins. And I remember when he told me how Jesus died for my sins, I just was heartbroken. I was so sad that he had to do that for my sins. And, Dad asked me if I believed, and we just talked about, and it was presented on a level that didn't take away from the gospel, but that it was a level that I can definitely comprehend. And yep, I didn't have any trouble comprehending that I needed Jesus. And I prayed that night, March 12th, 1978. I prayed that night that Jesus would come into my life. He would be the boss of my life, take control, and forgive me for my sins. And I'm going to tell you, that's the best decision I've ever made in my life. Now, do I goof up? Absolutely. Do I still sin? Oh, yeah. But here's what I know. I have an eternal home in heaven with Jesus. And there is nothing I can do to change that. I will tell you, I did have several years where I doubted my salvation, because truthfully, I was dealing with depression and anxiety, and man, Satan used that and to really make me question things. But I got that taken care of. If you ever want to talk about that, we can talk about that, because I took care of that, and my mind started clearing up, and I recognized that was just Satan trying to attack me, because once I made that decision to follow Jesus, Jesus put me in his hands, and I've never been released, and I never will be. So I'm telling you this to tell you, you need Jesus. If you don't have a relationship with Jesus, you need Jesus. Now, let me tell you, that doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect. I've had plenty of hardships and craziness and sadness and all sorts of things in my life. But I will tell you that I'm not fighting these battles alone. Jesus is walking right beside me, and I'm able to get through it because of him. Not because of me. Not even because of the great support system I have, but because of Jesus. And I know that when I die, I'm going to go to heaven. I'm going to see those people that also had Jesus in their hearts and see them again in heaven. If you are struggling with this and you're not sure what to think, then let me tell you a couple of things. First, get a Bible and read the book of John. It's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the New Testament. Read the book of John. And it will, it will open your eyes to what a mighty, awesome Savior we have. If you're still struggling and you're thinking, well, I am not sure that I believe all of this, I'm going to tell you, Lee Strobel, who was an atheist news reporter, decided he was going to study it for himself. And it resulted in him becoming a Christian, and it resulted in some really impressive research. He wrote the book, The Case for Christ, and he wrote The Case for Faith. I think he has one called The Case for the Resurrection. And what those books do is they present evidence of why everything that we read in the Bible is factual, and why Jesus was who he said he was, and why we saved. So I encourage you, if you are not sure, check out those books. Those books have some really great, and they're interesting to read. They're not terrible to read. So check out those books. Those can give you some factual information if you are one of those that struggles. Okay, well, you talked me to, oh, no, you didn't. I talked you to work this morning. If you make a decision to follow Jesus, would you let me know? I'd love to pray for you. I'd love to pray with you, talk to you. That would be amazing. And thanks. Thanks for hanging with me. I am at work. I've got a lot to do today, so I've got to get her done. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.